Hey, welcome. My name's Angelo, and this is the first and best episode of Player Chat featuring Steve Heller from Surprise Attack and Pixels for Breakfast.
Hey, how you going?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good to be here, man.
Yeah. So you're all the way from, you're here in Adelaide, all the way from Melbourne.
I work for a publishing label,
Okay.
kind of like a record label. And yeah, over there I'm a production coordinator, so I do producing. I also do some narrative work at Surprise Attack games. So.
Okay, but they also do things like some PR and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, so as part of that we have PR, and we have a sister company called Double Jump that does a lot of the PR you see for stuff like Razer, Plantronics, High Res Entertainment, stuff like that. So separate companies, but it all started under the Surprise Attack brand. Yep. So yeah, just sort of a bit of confusion there, but it's starting to separate, which is good.
Yeah. All right, excellent. All right, good. Glad we've got that cleared up in that
cool.
case. But you're not just working for a publishing label or anything like that. You also do some streaming as your side hustle, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I got my start in the industry as a games journalist, and as part of that, we did a lot of video production and podcasts like this sort of thing. And then, sort of stepping away from that, decided to give live streaming a go. And yeah, got partnered on Mixer, was Australia's first partner, which was pretty exciting. And I've been doing that for about a year and a half now, which is pretty good. So yeah.
Nice. So let's start right from the beginning in that case. So you like you say, you did some video game writing and things. So you first started off with MMGN, right?
Yeah, that's right. Way back in like 2010, I was basically running my own blog, and I think it was 2009 or 10. There was a festival called E-Games, and I was part of the MMGN forums at that point, and they invited me to come down and work the booth. And then they offered me a full-time job as a PC editor. So I quit my career as a IT network admin for a very big hospital to take a huge pay cut and follow the dream of video games, which was kind of interesting.
As it usually goes.
Yeah, that's it. So moved. I was living in rural Victoria at the time, so I moved down to Melbourne and made a lot of friends and did a whole bunch of writing, and that was back before YouTube was really a thing, so like trying to make video content back in those days was a bit of a pain. So I stayed there for about a year and a half, and then went on to do freelance stuff for like Game Informer in the States and Gamefront, which used to be a thing back in the day, and some of the Escapist and things like that. So
nice. All right, cool. So how did you get into doing a lot of freelance work to then actually working like in an office writing about video games and stuff like that? So how did that come about, and then where did you go from there?
Yeah, right. So MMGN was pretty small, and they just got an office in South Yarra, so they were like, hey, do you want to do some freelance for us for about 6 months? So as part of that, there's when their sort of indie game explosion sort of happens. They're like, hey, we want to write about indie games, this is the new thing, so we want you to do that. I didn't know anything about indie games, right? Like nothing about indie games. I was just like, I played first-person shooters and nothing else. I hated RPGs, I hated MMOs. So I took this as an opportunity to just really dive into what the hell an indie game was. And then Braid came out, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's an indie game. So I started researching that and doing a whole bunch of writing. And then after about 6 months, they invited me to come work full-time. So I moved down to Melbourne, and as part of that, just immersed myself entirely in indie games, which I made a career out of that now, and I love indie games, but back then it was really hard because there wasn't a lot of visibility like you have now, and like Xbox Live was still a brand new thing, so even for these indie games existing, to get them into the hands of people was really hard too. So that's also been a really interesting thing. I was there at the start, I guess, of mainstream indie video games, which is crazy. Things have changed.
Yeah, they really have, haven't they? And even just in Australia, we're still. Some of us are still like grasping for straws in terms of like, trying to build the game industry back up to where it kind of fell off of, being so big back in the day and things. But, it's still thriving, with a lot of these smaller developers and stuff. Like you come to AVCon and there are so many games here. You go to PAX, there are even more, so many other conventions and stuff like that. So there's always new games to deal with. But so let's talk about what it was like for you writing back then. Like, what it was like in the landscape of writing in Australia. Because nowadays, like, a lot of these established, sites that work from offices and things like that, where they have staff on board, they've pretty much died now. We've got some of the larger ones like GameSpot, IGN, Kotaku, but then like MGM, for example, has now closed down and stuff. What was it like writing at that time?
It was really interesting. So obviously everyone was aspiring to work at GameSpot or IGN, because like everyone does, right? And then you still had your institutions like Hyper Magazine and Game Informer Australia, but there was, at the time, a place for community sites. Like MMGN was the biggest independent games community in Australia, and a lot of the money that was funding that site came from the advertising, right? So like they would have like over 500,000 uniques every month, plus like you would keep going back to forums, so you kept serving ads, right? So that helped. We only had 3 full-time staff, that was it. our boss at the time was running a whole bunch of other side ventures and stuff that was, he was losing money on the side, but there was a place for that. Like, our competitor at the time was MMGN, which when I think back now, like, that site was so small.
Yeah, it really was.
And then, like, along came 9MSN, bought games content off us, so once again, that gave us more money, which got us, like, into places like E3. Like, I remember our first E3, like, trying to get press passes back in the day was impossible. Now, you have a couple of YouTube subscribers, you should easily get a pass, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It was a bit more official, I think, than it is now. Even though, even at the time, everyone could start a games blog, but like even Facebook was still not as ingrained as it is. Like, it's everything in our online media has really changed, right?
Yep.
And like at the end of the day, a lot of those community sites have died off because a 16-year-old kid will happily write for free to get a free game, which I totally understand. And journalism, if you want to call it that, right, isn't as important, right? Yep. So it's really interesting. Like, it'd be interesting to see how long we have a GameSpot in Australia.
Yeah, well, that's it, right?
How much of their content is Australian focused, right? They've got a really talented team of writers, but you read into the stuff, it could as well just be coming out of the US, right?
Yeah.
And just like many other industries, like the movie industry here, like it's so expensive. So I think that's why we're seeing like there are sites like Survivor around that are like sort of that mid-tier thing, but that's more of a passion project, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And press starts, starting to make waves, but outside of that, like I remember when I first started, there were so many sites, and now there's like, you can count them on one hand.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I'm not sure. I'm happy to be out of the game. Like, I sort of saw that happening, right? So that's sort of when I made the conscious decision, I'm going to jump off at this wagon. And I think I made the right decision. I do miss writing a lot, but what I'm doing now is way more important to me, so it kind of worked out.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Well, that's a good transition point. So then, you went from writing for someone like MMGN to then starting your own site, Pixels for Breakfast, which was originally a site that you would write for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, I left MMGN on contentious terms. There were some review score changes and things like that, and I was like, nah, I'm out, done. So I came up with the idea that I was going to do freelance, and I set the goal that I'm going to be published in a magazine by the end of this year. And started writing for Game Informer pretty regularly, a few pieces in Hyper here and there. And basically everything, I would write everything and then try and sell it. A lot of freelancers would be like pitch ideas and then do the story. I would just write everything, and anything I didn't sell would go on Pixels for Breakfast. And then the one thing that I really enjoyed at MMGN was like Gaetano Prestia, who was the editor at the time. He did a really great job of sort of teaching me, I guess, a mentorship of new writers and things. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to give back, I guess. So that's how you and I met, actually. You started doing some articles. I don't even remember how we got in touch, but I just remember you were like, I want to write. I want to write.
I think I just hit you up one time. Like, oh, this seems like a cool site. It's Australian. It's different to what I was doing before. Yeah, I'll send an email to this Stephen Heller guy.
This guy. And with that too, there were no real Australian sites that were just focusing on indie was always our focus at that site, and I think that's in those early days we had a pretty decent readership for a tiny little blog, which was really awesome. Like, we still covered some of the big stuff, but I think at that point too, and even now, like, you need to have a niche and do it well. Like, everyone tried. Like, why as a little site do you want to read that Call of Duty review? Because I can go read it 1,000 other places.
That's right.
Like, what can you give me that no one else can? Which is also hard to find your audience as well. And as I said, like, no one was really doing those indie pieces, so I think that's why we sort of worked well in the early days before making that transition to streaming.
Yeah, so let's get into that then. So you went from changing pixelsforbreakfast.net to being a site based around video game writing and indie games and stuff, to then transitioning fully into streaming. Yeah. So what's the change there? How'd that happen?
Well, managing a whole bunch of writers. Like, we had people all over the world. Like, Bart was in France at the time, we had Phil in Scotland, we had you here in Adelaide. Like, trying to make all that work was just too hard, and especially, like, I had no money. We weren't making any money on that side. It was costing me money. So I'm like, I'm just going to do this by myself. And then, once again, I saw people doing streaming, but everyone's doing, like, the hand me up. Like, everyone's got their shtick, right? And I wanted to do something a bit more journalistic focused. So I started just doing, like, first playthroughs of indie games, which is what I started doing on Twitch. But once again, there's so many people on Twitch, like, get lost in the noise. So I did that for like 6 or 8 months. And then a friend put me onto Beam at the time. It was called Beam, which is Microsoft's new streaming platform. And I found that community of people who were a bit more artistic, a bit more friendly, looking to push boundaries of what streaming is, and probably a bit more susceptible to the type of content I wanted to make. So I set a goal. I'm going to get partnered in a year, and then 6 months later we got partnered. Microsoft changed the name to Mixer. It's come out on Xbox One, and now, like, obviously not hitting Twitch numbers, but it is growing and growing every week, which is really good to see.
But if I can interrupt there, so you say you became a partner. That was a significant thing though at the time, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. They only had about 10 partners. Microsoft was injecting all this money into it. I took a week off my job in December to just stream the entire week. I did a 72-hour live stream with no breaks, which was the worst by myself.
Yeah, wow.
And the CEO of the company heard about it and came in at the very end. Like, what the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing? Like,
that's so cool.
Mixers run, even though Microsoft own it, it's run by a 19-year-old kid who developed this technology that's insane. Like, there's 0.2 second delay. So, like, when people could see I'm tired, they're instantly just screaming at me. It was so good. Then I got partnered in January, and that was like a massive deal. Like,
but you were the first Australian partner.
Australian partner. Yeah. We now have 3 partners in Australia. So another 6 months later, we've still only got 2 more partners here. And it's been really significant because a bunch of my Australian friends who wanted to watch me on Twitch couldn't, where they can on Mixer, because Mixer just has less bandwidth, and they've got way more service because they all run on the Azure platform, which is all cloud-based, right?
Yep.
So for regions that don't have the best internet like Australia, like it was actually more beneficial for me to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, right?
Yep.
With the whole Twitch thing, it's like, Twitch is the king of the roost now. Will Mixer overtake them? Probably not. But if anyone can make a shot of it, Microsoft has the money to do it, right? Yep. So I think the next year will be interesting to see where they go. Because like now Twitch is like, we can get interactive streaming happening now too. So it's kind of, I don't know, like who knows, right? Like it's better to give it a shot than not, I guess.
That's right. Well, it's like you say, if anyone's going to take on Twitch, it's going to be Microsoft. They're the only ones who really have the resources and the funds to kind of put effort into doing something like that. But they've gone ahead and they've embedded Mixer into Xbox now. But so is that sort of, you would probably know, but do you see that sort of then also coming over to something like PlayStation? I mean, PlayStation's pretty much put all their eggs in the Twitch basket at this point. Yeah,
it'll be interesting, especially like Microsoft have all these weird relationships because of Minecraft, right? Like their Xbox Live powers all of the online interaction of Minecraft on Switch. Yep. Like what the hell?
Yeah, that's
like
ridiculous.
10 years ago, that would not have happened, right? And then you saw at E3, like Phil Spencer having a few shots fired at PlayStation. So it'll be interesting to see how that mixed relationship works. But on the Xbox One, like they have an entire dashboard screen that's just Mixer, all the Mixer streamers and stuff. So whenever I get featured on there, the viewership just goes through the roof, which is insane. I didn't think it would. They've also embedded it into Windows 10 now. So anyone who has Windows 10 who wants to stream, who doesn't know how to use OBS, there's literally just the game button that just, instead of recording a local edition, pushes it out to Beam. So it also makes it more significant and easier for anyone to give it a shot. And they're also going a different route to Twitch. Like Twitch has the Twitch Live thing now, but Mixer has the phone streaming app, so you can basically stream anything. So they're going for arts and crafts streamers, they're going for cooking streamers. That's why they chose that name too, because they want a different mix of content. So maybe that's the competitive edge. Like I'm not really sure, but at the same time, I don't think Microsoft really knows yet either.
Yeah. Well, I don't think anyone really knows what this streaming thing's gonna be. Like, I mean, it is so many things.
Yeah. All we know is it's going to get bigger and bigger. It's becoming more and more important, even from like a PR perspective. Like they have entire like streamer-only areas at E3 and PAX and stuff now, and like the Twitch booth is like, hey, we'll give you a computer so you can just make content for us the entire time.
Yep.
Which then once again, you're running into that issue where people aren't paying writers back in when we were doing that stuff. Oh, well, you're not really getting paid for content, but you're representing Twitch and you're making a whole bunch of content, same as a lot of people from Mixer are doing, right? Like, you've got to be careful around lines are being blurred, and there's like, it's such an infancy, like that whole thing, right? Like, how does that work? Like, how do community managers giving codes out to streamers really work? Because they're not really objective, or are they? Like, there's no ethics there yet, right?
That's right. Yeah, there aren't any guidelines, there aren't any boundaries to what you can do. Yeah.
So it's very like I've just always been like, this game's crap. I don't like this game. Like just straight up. Like, and I'll tell the people that. Like that's been my thing. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how other streamers sort of tackle that stuff. And I think there'll be some big controversy that happens that eventually, like, okay, these guidelines need to be set. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where streaming is at, again, 12 months from now.
Yeah, that's right. So with streaming and things like that, like, I'm completely far removed from streaming. I have no, like, my internet is absolutely terrible for streaming and things. You know, even watching streams sometimes can be an issue. So explain to me why streaming is important. I look at streaming and I see things like PewDiePie or a whole bunch of other teenagers just out there yelling at a camera the whole time. Convince someone like me what streaming can do. Right, so like, that's interesting, right? Because I don't watch streams. I don't really watch streams. I got some friends that stream that I'll watch, but I don't watch because of the games they're playing. I watch because I want to see them, right? Like the Pixels of Breakfast community is
mentally insane. They're absolutely crazy people, and I love them to death, right? But it doesn't matter what game I'm playing, they're just coming to talk crap to me, which is really interesting. I think that there are those people that have their shtick that are yelling and screaming at the camera, and I do a little bit of that for sure, but for me, it's about showcasing games that they normally wouldn't see. Like, I was really surprised. My favorite game in the world, right, is Sam & Max Hit the Road. It's an adventure game from like 94.
Interesting.
Right? And I'm like, I don't care, I'm going to play this game on my stream. And I thought everyone would hate it. And like, no one knew what the game was, and they ended up loving it. Right?
That's interesting.
And that's interesting. Like, part of why I stream is to take games that people probably wouldn't give a chance or wouldn't know about and see that, right? Yep. The big thing that we push on Pixel Breakfast is like, an inclusive community, a place that people can bowl off some steam and there's no judgment and all that sort of stuff. Like, I find a lot of these communities can be quite toxic or don't really create a safe space, and like, I basically have a lovable band of misfits in our community. Like, I'm a bit weird, and like, so are these people, and it gives them a place to sort of chat. Like, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is check my Discord, and the last thing I do before I go to bed is do the same thing. And like, they know my girlfriend, they know like things that are going on in my life, just like I know things that are going on in their lives, and it gives them a place to sort of explore that. Like, it's this weird thing, like, we're in this culture where celebrities and everyone is so accessible, right? Like, you can see everything that Kim Kardashian's doing on Instagram, like, at all times, right? And streaming is like, I'm not comparing myself to that, but like, you got these like just regular people that are playing video games, and it's the one thing that binds all of us, and it's so interactive. Like, they're talking to me and I'm talking to them while I'm playing the game. Like, it's instant gratification, that connection, right? And like, when I go to shows in the States, PAX, like, they're like, oh my God, it's Pixel Breakfast, I watch your stream all the time, and like, we get to hang out, we have some beers, and like, that's something that they don't have. So it's kind of like this lowest of tier celebrity sort of thing where it's just like, we have this really cool thing in common.
Yeah.
It's really cool to meet the fans. Like, I spend hours and hours talking to these people like every year, and then like, they're there and we get to hang out and have some beers and stuff. Like, but I don't know, like, I think people watch streams for different things. Like, I very rarely will watch a stream just to see the game. I'm usually there to see the person, which is so crazy to me, right? For me personally, like, I watch a stream, I'm like, I could be playing the game, but that's just my personal thing. There are plenty of people who maybe don't have a PlayStation who want to see what Uncharted is like. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't have the answer. It's super weird.
Yeah, fair enough.
In the back end, I can see that people really like it when I sing like an idiot, or like, I can see that sort of stuff. Like, I can sort of gauge what content I put out there that people really like. But other than that, like, yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm too old. I'm an old man.
I know, right?
Yeah.
We are old men in this thing, especially in the world of streaming. Like I say, you know, it's most of the realm of teenagers and young people.
Yeah, no,
so.
I'm like 30, and then like some of my fans are like 16.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember playing like Contra on my NES, and like, what's that?
Yeah, they're like, what's a Contra?
Yeah, like Mesmer, one of my fans, he's 15 from Sydney, right?
Yeah.
And like, I was playing this game, he's like, yeah, I was 3 when it came out. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life?
It's the same with me, you know, I'm a high school teacher. I even teach primary school kids music and things like that. And yeah, there are moments when it's like, oh God, like, you guys weren't even alive when, like, you know, we had things like 9/11 happen. Like, that's insane, you know, it's crazy. Or even like they weren't even born when the first Xbox was around, you know, things like that. It's crazy. But going, so now I just want to talk about, you mentioned people who are streamers and things, how, you know, do they have any, is there sort of ethical boundaries around how they advertise for games or things like that? Right. Now, being someone who was a journalist or wrote about video games and things, you know, there is a certain level of ethical responsibility you have there, you know, in terms of advertising or just talking about games or even giving your opinion about how a game runs or you experienced it. How do you feel about the whole, like, oh, you know, the whole influencer thing, like, oh, you know, I'm going to get this game for free from this publisher, they might pay me to talk about it or whatever, I'm just going to kind of like talk about how great it is even though I might not like it. Like, where do you sort of sit on that edge?
Yeah, so like, I'm not big enough to get a paid promotion, like, that's as simple as that, right? But I do have some partners, so like Astro Gaming sponsor my stream, so they gave us some headsets, so I use the headsets on the stream. Yep. I personally think they're good headsets. Like, my thing in saying is, if I wouldn't use it, like, if I wouldn't put my money down on it, I'm not going to feature it on the stream. Whenever I get sent a game, just like I would in a review, like 2K Australia sent me this for a review or whatever, right? So like, I always mention, yeah, this is who sent me the game, but like, I never pull any punches. If someone sends me a game and I check it out, particularly for an indie, right? Like, it can be make and break in indie games, like, it might not be coming out for a while. If the game's not good, I'll usually just tell the developer, hey, it's probably better for you if I don't stream this, and here's why. I don't really see a point, like, there is a bit of a streaming culture of, let's play this game that I perceive to be horrible and just rip it apart. And for an indie dev, that could be make or break, right?
Yep.
So I never do that, but if they keep pushing me to review it, then I'll and I'll just pull it apart, right? What you see now is like, yeah, EA are like, here, we want you to do these Battlefield videos, and we're going to give you like $5,000, but don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
And that's where
it's really shady.
Yeah, and I think there's like FCC laws in America around that stuff. I'm not sure about Australia, to be honest. So I'm not in a position I've ever had to look that up, right? But yeah, that's where it becomes like, is this person actually saying what they think? Or are they trying to sell copies for EA? Or are they being overly nice about the game because if they say something bad, EA will stop sending them product and they can't afford to get the product? Like, I mean, I was streaming 60 hours a week and I'm only earning like $400 US.
60 hours, man, that's
yeah,
a lot
like
of
that's
time.
on top of my full-time job.
That's
and like, I love it. Like, at some point, like, I can't afford to buy all these games for that much beer money, right? Like, I'm spending that much on electricity to run my lights and all my gear, right?
No joke.
So yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's this really weird balancing act. Like, if you're PewDiePie, you've got more money than you can, you can afford to buy those games. But if you're just like a struggling streamer, plus it's cool. Like, if you start a stream from nothing and then EA reach out, like, we're gonna send you some games, like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first time I got a press copy of a game in the mail. Like, I was just like blown away.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, that's hard. That's hard, especially when you don't, like, these people don't have any training and they're a 14-year-old kid sitting there. So, yeah, I don't know what the fix is to that problem, but I think, like, it's not just on the content creator side, it's being vigilant on the content you're consuming, right? Like, you need to make that decision for yourself whether you trust that person's opinion.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
Fair enough. Well, so finishing up on Pixels for Breakfast then, do you see yourself having a Cooking with Steve sort of segment, or I don't know, playing the guitar or something like that?
I've done, so my band does all of our rehearsals on live stream.
That's pretty cool.
With multi cameras, so people can change cameras for Sparks on Mixer. I've done cooking streams before. I'm pretty sure people only want to watch to see if I cut myself. So I haven't done many of those. We're about to do this cool thing. I think it's going to be cool. So my girlfriend's really into Lego, right?
Yep.
So she's bought a bunch of Lego sets that I've never seen. And it's going to be her reading out the instructions, and I don't know what it is, and me trying to put it together based on the instructions.
That's pretty cool. That's
so yeah, but I'm trying to do some fun things because, as I said, 60 hours a week of streaming has just really killed me, especially like I'm heading into crunch time at work. So I'm just trying to work out some more novelty things that I can just do like once or twice a week. We also do live board games, which I found a whole bunch of fun. Once again, the camera angles where people can like zoom in real close when we're doing dice rolls, and then like a whole room of the view, and yeah, it's really it's a lot of fun. Same thing as like journalism, right? Like, why would someone watch me play Uncharted over someone else? What am I bringing to the table? And I think that a lot of people getting started in streaming who just start and get no viewers and are like, oh, this is crap, what have I done? This is not worth my time. Like, you need to work out who you are, what you bring to the table, what angle you're going with. Like, be interesting, don't just be everyone else. I think would be advice I give to people wanting to do streams.
Yeah, don't be some guy just screaming at the camera talking about how shit a game is and then just playing Overwatch for 8 hours.
Yeah, like, exactly, right? Yeah, totally.
Where does streaming, like you say, for 60 hours a week, fit in with your full-time work in that case? How do you sort of differentiate those two lives or two occupations that you have for yourself?
No sleep and a lot of caffeine, pretty much. Yeah, so like I've set that boundary that anything that Surprise Stack makes, I don't stream ever. Anything that Double Jump touches, I won't stream either. And yeah, so Surprise Stack's been really good. Like, they know that I do the stream for fun. It lets me blow off steam and all that sort of stuff. But on the other side, I'm checking out all these crazy indie games and like getting a bit of a landscape and understanding what people are liking. So it's actually a little bit beneficial to like my understanding of the industry, I think. Yeah, like work's been really good about that. I tend to do longer streams on the weekend, but it's also like US time zones. Like, most of my fans are in the US, right? So trying to work out when I can stream around them is really hard. Normally I just finish work at 3 in the afternoon, go home, and stream from 5 till 10, go to bed, start work at like 6:30 in the morning.
Yikes. Just
to make it happen, right? Which when I was trying to be partner, like, I was worth it. I had something to work towards. Now I'm partner and I'm only earning a little bit of money. I'm just like, do I really want to do this?
Yeah.
Do I really want to do this? So that's sort of the state I'm in. And like, to me, that's just given me a lot of respect for these people that are doing it as their full-time gig, right? Like, they put in so much work. Like, there's so much behind the scenes, like planning when I'm going to do stuff. I'm planning with the content creation team, like, when can I get some featuring from you? Is there something you guys want me particularly to stream so I can get that featuring, so then I can convert that to hopefully paying users? Making sure that those paying users feel like they're worth their $5.99 US a month, making sure they have content, making sure I'm streaming enough content to warrant that money. Like, it's really hard sort of balancing act, right? And that's why the last couple of months I've sort of stepped back a bit, because work is like at that time work wasn't so busy, and now I'm heading into crunch period. So it's just like making sure that one doesn't suffer for the other. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Well, so then in Surprise Attack, what is your role? What is it that you do with Surprise Attack?
Right. So my official title is a production coordinator. So that's basically a fancy title for a producer, right? So it's fancy for project manager, basically. So I run all the timelines for when games are meant to be coming out. Set the build milestones, like you need to have this working and complete by this date, so we hit dates on time.
Yep.
So we work with small developers of usually like 2 to 5 people, and a producer is a really handy thing to have because you're making this game and like you need to make it perfect, and you tend to just focus on things, right? And it's more about encouragement and pushing out the door, giving that outside design advice. So I do a lot of design advice stuff. And then also my marketing team at Surprise Attack, like, we need these assets to make a trailer. We need this for this. So it's my job to be like, they don't have time to do that. This is why, like, sort of being the middleman between both teams, right? Yep. And then my role on each project changes from project to project. So on something like Orwell, the team's German, their English is pretty good, but it doesn't flow like natural English speakers. So a lot of that stuff, I jumped in and did the editing of the game text, or in that case, I wrote a whole bunch of original content for the game as well. So I'm basically a co-writer. Did the same for Hacknet. On something like Think of the Children, I'm just straight production. So just making sure they hit the timelines. If the levels aren't feeling good, coming up with solutions or ideas of what we can do to change, and make sure that we hit those deadlines, which is super important,
yep.
especially leading up to the Christmas period, right?
Yep. All right. So how many games does a company like Surprise Attack or Double Jump really have under their belt at any given time?
Yeah, right. So at the moment,
just to get a handle on like the scale of the company compared to something like the country.
So Surprise Attack, we are 5 employees. That's it. So we're very small, very lean, and we are currently got 3 games in full production, plus supporting probably about another 5 games in terms of sales and making sure that they're going through and like setting up promotions and Christmas sales and stuff like that. All up, we've released about 10 games under the label now. Right now, we've got 3 in active production that are like crunch time, and also trying to seek out new games because we need to fill out a slate for next year.
Yep.
So it's a difficult balancing act. Like, is this game going to be ready? Does it need more time? If it has more time, then are we releasing a game this year? Like, trying to work all that sort of stuff out. Because there's only 5 of us, like, that's really a hard balancing act, right? And I'm the only production coordinator, so that's also like a lot on my plate, especially right now.
Yeah.
So it's stressful, but like I've never had so much fun at a job.
That's great.
Like, just like anyone else that has a job, like, you have complaints, you're just like, oh, I don't want to get up and go to work. But at the end of the day, like, I couldn't be anywhere else right now. Like, the projects are super interesting. Like, we're working on games that I feel are very important to the player base. There are games that resonate with me on a personal level and my personal beliefs. So like going to work and working on something that means something to me is like super important, right? No matter that I don't have any sleep, but that's fine. It's totally fine. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you work with games like Orwell, and that there are some games that are like real passion projects for you, and ones that you really believe in and stuff. Tell me a little bit about Orwell. So I played the game as well.
Yep.
Really, really interesting idea on like internet security and just like how much information you're putting out there by using things like social media, and like how much information the government, the big shady governments are able to take from CCTV and stuff like that. Tell me a little bit about the game and how it works, because I think it's really interesting. Plus, it went on to get some serious buzz late last year.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. So like that's from a team called Osmotic Studios in Germany. They're a 3-person team. They're fantastic to work with, and they came to us with this idea of a politically charged game, basically what you said, how much information we put out online. The game doesn't really have like a forcing a particular point of view on it, but it's really interesting. The entire game revolves around a terrorist attack that happens in a place called The Nation, and you as an outsider person of the country to have unbiased, I guess, no bias, are investigating the suspected people's accounts and seeing what they've been up to and their text messages and their Facebook profiles and all that sort of stuff, and diving into their computers. And I guess it's a statement on, exactly, like how, not even how much we're putting out online, but how with no context someone looking at that stuff could completely think something different about you, right? Like something that you write when you're really angry on a Facebook post or rant or something, if I don't know you, like, what does that actually mean? What does that sound like?
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting because, like you see now, like, this is the old man hello coming out of it. But, you know, like, you see, like, a lot of these people just, like, posting, like, these crazy rants about, like, I guess the state of the world right now. Like, a lot of people aren't happy about the US government or things that's happening in the Middle East. So it's like, do you actually know? Have you done any research? Look at all these people that are just blindly saying, yeah, I agree, yeah, bugger this, bugger that. Like, it's really, like, how much are you thinking about what you say? And then what are people thinking about you based on what you say? And are you maybe misinforming their opinions on something because you don't really know what you're talking about? I mean, like, I think everyone's guilty of it in some respects.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
totally,
look at people who are, you know, 14 who have Facebook, and now they're like, you know, 20, 25, you know?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Like,
yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So I guess the game is a lot about that, and thinking about, like, what is the right to security as opposed to the right to protection from the government? Like, what is that line? And it's a blurry line, and depending on what country, and it's even blurrier, right?
Yeah.
Like, looking at the stuff that happened at the start of the year where people were handing over their phones to the US, like, what are they taking off those phones? Like, what data are they downloading? Where's that data going?
Yeah.
Like, we don't know, right? Sure, you can put the tinfoil hat on, but I guess it's the ethical question of, is that right? Like, I tried to explain this to my parents, right? They're like, oh, why are you using WhatsApp? I'm like, because it's got end-to-end encryption. I don't like the idea that the government can just have my messages. That's not cool, right? I tried to explain to them, oh, how would you feel if, like, every letter you got in the mail was open? Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't have that. I'm like, well, it's the same thing, right? It's just a different age. Like, that was a really interesting game because it explored a lot of those issues about, like, cybersecurity, but it also had some really interesting characters in it. Some that made the cut to the game, some that didn't, and, like, getting into, I guess, the psyche of those characters. Like, there's a guy who's in a band, so we actually got an Australian band in Western Australia, a punk band, to provide a track for the soundtrack, and they're like the in-game band and all this sort of stuff. Like, we got to do a lot of cool little Easter eggs like that. And they're just a really great team to work with. And as you said, like, it was up for the IGF award for narrative excellence, which for me, I was just like, oh man, that's really awesome, right? We just won at the Brazilian Indie Games Festival in Brazil just a couple of weeks ago.
Nice. Won
a few awards in Germany. So, like, the Surprise Attack is a landmark game.
Yeah.
Like, it's the first one that's had, like, international recognition that's done really well.
Yeah, and, like, Surprise Attack seems to also, like you say, they pick up some really interesting games. I mean, you know, they help pick up Hacknet, who we have had Matt Treviani on the show before. I think it's like the second episode of the show.
Nice.
You know, they've also had a couple of VR games. You know, Blind was one of them that they had here at AVCon last year. That was a really interesting game. So what do you guys have, or, you know, with them here
I'm
at
not
AVCon?
officially here, but I can chill, it's fine.
But so, like, you know, what kind of stuff are they showing off?
Yeah, so we're only showing off one game this year at AVCon, which is Think of the Children, which is a parenting simulator for 1 to 4 parents, where you're basically just taking these kids out to different events. Like, you're going to the park, you're going to the beach, you're trying to do your shopping. It's kind of got that Overcooked sort of vibe where you've got
Overcooked,
way too much stuff to juggle as you're trying to look after the kids. That's sort of still, back in the early days of Surprise Attack, it was just like, we need to get games. Like, let's just get a whole bunch of games and work out how this works. And we've done that we've been a publisher for 5 years now. So we've done all of that, and it's sort of, as we're going along, and we've got a game like Hacknet, and then we get something like Orwell, we realize that as a publisher, we're better working with smaller teams, and we are more passionate about games that either have something to say or are doing a genre in a completely different way. So we're slowly sort of stepping away from those party games a little bit, and we're sort of more going towards that sort of thing. So that's sort of something you can look forward to seeing from us in the future. Like, we've got some good games on the burner that I can't talk about right now, but that's sort of where we're heading. The Think of the Children is just, like, absolutely insane chaos and fun. And the good thing about that one is they're actually from Brisbane, so it's another Aussie dev that we're sort of partnered with to get another Aussie game out to the masses, which is really awesome.
Awesome. All right. Well, so I guess we'll start finishing up now. So where do you see yourself going then in terms of, you know, video game publishing and streaming? Like, where do you think your life will end up?
It's going to be interesting. Like, I don't know. I think the streaming thing is just going to be more of a hobby for some beer money, to be honest, at this point. Like, it's way too much work with a full-time job, and I got bills, so I can't really just give everything up. I think I'll stay as Surprise Attack for a few more years, and then I'm working with someone on something small and very slow part-time. We're going to see how that pans out. I think the next step for me will be either to go join a team that needs a producer that's a little bit bigger, sort of in that Double Fine sort of space, but in Australia, or I just start my own thing with a business partner. So
you see yourself sort of going into more game development in that case?
Yeah, definitely. Especially like now that Orwell and both Hacknet and Orwell have got a lot of narrative chops, that's given me confidence in, hey, maybe I could do that. But the reality is, like, no indie team's going to hire a full-time writer unless you're someone like Oxenfree or Telltale or something like that. So that's why I wanted to go into production, because I think it gives me a double-edged sword. So yeah, maybe going something into a lead designer and maybe my own indie studio, I'm not sure. Once again, need the money to get that back, but we'll see. This project that I'm working on at the moment with Andrew Smith, who works for Mighty Games at the moment, but he released an indie game that won the Australian Indie Games Award for accessibility last year called Tangent. He used to work for Microsoft, so we've got some chops already. We're brewing up something, so we'll see what happens. Might end up there in a few years, or I might still be here, like publishing games. Like, just don't know yet, right?
Awesome, that sounds great.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. All right, well, so where can we find you then? I'm going to have your Twitter handle on the video probably right about now.
Yep.
You know, we've got Pixels for Breakfast on
Mixer.com
Mixer.
/Pixels for Breakfast.
Yep. Is there anywhere else?
Yeah, pixelsforbreakfast.net is still running. A few articles up there, but also takes you straight to the page. And yeah, just Twitter.
Excellent. All right, well, thank you very much for taking your time to come speak with me
No worries,
today.
thanks for having us. Good to catch up, man.
Hope you have a great AVCon.
Absolutely, love that.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.